So over the last, I guess, couple of years, maybe year and a half or so, you've been noticing me cover more around Bing-related topics. And that's partially because of Bing's been more out there in the public and outreach. And one of the reasons for that is this man named Frederic Dubut, who is now the lead PM of the core ranking team. He was just promoted about, I don't know, a week or two ago, maybe a few weeks ago. I'm not exactly sure when. And I'm not exactly sure when this video is going to come out exactly, but I'm looking forward to talking to him because he was leading up spam for probably 4 years or so at Bing, search quality related stuff. Before that, he was in crawling, and before that, he was working on Microsoft Office. So he has a long career at Microsoft, interesting person, very transparent. So I'm looking forward to sitting down with him, asking him about stuff, joking around a little bit, and seeing what we can learn from him because Bing is a fascinating search engine. It's really, the quality is amazing, and more people should give it more credit than it has. So looking forward to you listening to this conversation, and I'm also personally looking forward to having the conversation with Frederic. This video is sponsored by Rank Ranger, an all-in-one SEO platform that offers dozens of customizable tools and reports. Check them out at rankranger.com. Frederic, thank you for letting me interview you. I appreciate it. Most people in your position that have the secret and knowledge about how everything works in the universe, specifically search, would not let me sit down with them and talk to them. But I appreciate you doing it. So thank you.
I'm super happy to be here.
And thanks for everything you do for the community and coming to SMX and all the things you share online. It's just amazing. So thank you. Can you tell people who might not know who you are?
Yeah, so I'm Frederic. I've been working at Microsoft for almost 12 years now, like time flies. I've been working at Bing since 2011. I was working on the crawl for a few years. I worked on spam for the past couple of years, and very recently, just as of Monday, I transitioned to the core ranking team, where I became a manager of the small team, essentially generating the 10 blue links that you see.
That's amazing. Congratulations on that, and also congratulations on your wedding this year. You got married, so congratulations. It's been an exciting year, I assume.
Very exciting, and yeah, like if you count like over the past 12 months, so I became a citizen. That was about 12 months ago. That was the day after the midterms last year. So it was like the beginning of pretty good 12 months, I have to say. I'm pretty happy.
All right, awesome. Congratulations on all those things. It's amazing. So let's go through your history a little bit. You used to be a cadet in the French, what do they call it? Not the army, what do they call it?
It's called the army.
It's called the army?
It is.
Your profile says something else.
Oh, the Ministry of Defense.
Yeah.
Yeah, like in the sense that I had like a cushy position, like I was in front of the computer most of the time, so like that's why it's a Ministry of Defense and not like
cybersecurity.
Not quite.
No, I'm just joking. You hear what I'm saying. That's cool. That's good. Probably a cool experience to learn, I guess, leadership roles and how to stand in line and stuff like that. In the sense of, you have to act a certain way in an organization. So that's, from what I hear, people who were in the army, they have that sense of like structure, which is cool. And then you went to Japan and you built cars on an assembly line for Nissan.
Yeah, so I don't know what happened with the cars that I helped build. So I was before like the craziness of like the assembly line. So right before, like you need someone to essentially prepare all the parts that are going to be assembled in the cars. So I did that for a month. It was in the countryside of Japan. The goal was to learn a little bit of Japanese, and I think that I was okay.
You were okay, so you could have a conversation with Gary.
Not anymore. Like I forgot everything. It was in 2005.
2005.
I really don't get to practice a lot. But part of my school program was doing a month of hands-on internship. So some people were building cars, like some people were cleaning like hotel rooms, like something that was teaching you like real work almost, I would say.
Being in the atmosphere. Right. Was that because of a language class you took, or just because you should travel internationally and learn?
That was mandatory to do that for everyone in my program. Some people did it in France. It wasn't mandatory to do it abroad. But I found it more interesting to just like learn a new culture on top of just doing this job.
When did you move? You moved, I guess, when you joined Microsoft to the States?
A bit after that. So I started at Microsoft in Switzerland. I did my master's in Lausanne, the French part of Switzerland. Microsoft had just bought a startup working on voice over IP that was before Skype. That was a small startup called Media Streams. And they were trying to ramp up the team. So I joined as an intern, and then I worked on Office for about 3 years. And then they bought Skype. They decided to close our office because Switzerland is a very expensive country to maintain an office. And they offered me to relocate to the US, and I said yes. So here I am.
And then when you relocated to the US, you were still working on office, or you switched to the crawl team then?
I switched to Bing at the same time. Like, to be honest, at the beginning, I really didn't want to move to the US. That sounded like very far, like especially like the West Coast, Seattle, compared to Europe. Didn't necessarily want to leave my friends and family behind. And then I was like, like, what the hell? I have nothing to lose. So I decided to come for 2 years, and now it's 8.5. That's how it happens, I guess.
Awesome, congratulations! Wow. All right, so you joined the crawl team. You were on the crawl team for how long, approximately?
About 4 years.
So you learn a lot when you're on the crawl team, because that's like kind of the fundamentals of how you get content into the index.
Yeah, I mean that is the entry point to the web. So like lots of work on like the core crawler, which is like just fetching the HTML, but also my team at the time built the first version of the JavaScript renderer. So it was very scrappy. Like definitely, like I'm very happy that now we're switching to this Chromium-based browser, Evergreen Edge. I think it's definitely a great achievement because like we built it like the way we could at the time.
The investments in rendering and crawling the past year alone probably has been massive. So that's cool. And then you switched over to the spam team, I guess, not too long ago.
Yeah, so I took a 2-year break from Bing. I went to Xbox for a couple of years.
Got to entertain yourself, right?
Yeah, I mean, I like video games. I wanted to see how the sausage was made. And that was 2 awesome years. I got the chance to talk to game developers. I was working in the team that was essentially sharing analytics from the Xbox games for first and third parties. So if you're like EA, Activision, and you're building a game on the Xbox platform, we're sharing analytics with them. So it was a great experience, but there is something about Bing that is pretty unique at Microsoft, like the pace of things, the constant experimentation, always improving, shipping something like every day, every week. I missed it, and I came back in 2017.
So you probably worked closely with Satya back in the early days, right? Because he was leading up the Bing team.
So he had already left at the time.
When you joined, he's like, I gotta get out of here, can't work with you, going somewhere else.
Yeah, so our president was Chilu at the time.
Okay. When did he become CEO then?
Satya, that's about 5 years ago, I think.
Okay.
More or less.
Interesting. Okay, because I remember meeting with him in like a hotel somewhere in like Vegas or something. I forgot where exactly. It was like, this is the next big thing. You gotta like, it was and it's great to see him take over because he was a really, obviously still is, a smart guy. And he really got the concepts there. And it's nice to see somebody leading up Microsoft that was so instrumental in Bing. So, all right, so you went from crawling to Xbox to spam, and you spent how many years in spam?
A couple of years.
I guess that's a lot different than crawling.
It is very different. Crawling is more infrastructure, so you don't really look at bad or good content. Your goal is just to ingest all the content of the web that you can and make this kind of local copy, like on many servers. That is the index. Because in the end, when you run the ranking algorithm, it is picking up the best documents from the index. Like this is really what it's doing, not from the web, from the index. So your goal when you're in the indexing team is to make the index match the web as much as possible. So more an infrastructure team, platform team. Spam, you get like the adversarial aspect, that are people who are trying to mess with you. They're always inventing new tactics to get to higher results. And so that's definitely not a boring job. Like every day a new thing that is coming up. That's
all. So I always thought for some reason that the crawl team somewhat works with the spam team in that they don't want to crawl pages that are just spammy because it was a waste of resources. Did that ever happen, or it's not?
Yeah, there's only a bit of that, but the logic of detecting what is spam still belongs to the spam team. So in the end, as the crawl team, you're going to ingest a list of sites that, like many sites that are not worth crawling because they've been deemed spam, and like so you consume that data. But other than that, like you don't really implement any logic to detect.
Right, but I guess also indexing that spam content helps you build your spam models and target that type of stuff. Obviously, I'm sure your level is so deep that me saying things just makes absolutely no sense anyway. But can I ask you, is there a technique that you could share that doesn't work anymore, but was kind of like new and like, oh my God, I can't believe people figured this out? Can you share anything? You're not part of the spam team anymore. Whoever's in charge of that will have to deal with it. Is there anything like off the top of your head, like, oh my God, that was kind of like cool. I can't believe this guy figured this out, but now it doesn't work anymore. It's kind of safe to say, or you'd rather not go there?
Well, I can tell you about something we announced very recently. So obviously, when we talk about subdomain leasing, that is not the most egregious spam. Like it's not like creating thousands of websites and like doorways and these kind of things. But definitely, the reason why we decided to address it is because if you don't address it, it kind of works. The idea that like if you are a very big publisher, like news publisher, and you rent coupons.bigpublisher.com to a what label coupon company. If we don't do anything, there is a fair chance that this subdomain is going to benefit from the authority of the top-level domain, it will be considered all the same site, whereas really the subdomain is operated by a third party with no supervision at all in general. Like if you look at the DNS, like the subdomain is pointing to a completely different part, like different servers, different everything.
It's completely hosted off a different server on their domain name.
Yeah.
Okay.
So definitely, like that's something that if we don't address, it kind of works. But
do some of them actually just put the content up on their own domain name and their server, and you're dealing with those too? Like
we don't necessarily look if it's hosted in the same server or not. Like the concept is more if it is owned and operated by a third party, completely independently of the main site. We just want to make sure that the subdomain is not benefiting unfairly from this extra signal. That doesn't mean we're going to crush the subdomain. That doesn't mean there is no value for users. We just want to keep it fair for everyone.
Yeah, that's interesting because this is the blog post you announced, I think, in early November, right?
Yeah,
on the
about
big
a couple of
blog.
weeks ago, yeah.
And it was around a whole bunch of things. It was like links, PBNs, you like kind of bulked all these different types of things together as one big spam penalty. And then you said on Twitter later that, well, some things are, I guess the documents in terms of the principles around spam, this is what our new guidelines are around these concepts. So the manual action team can go ahead and take action immediately on it, but the algorithms around this type of stuff that automate these actions, I don't know if you call them actions, but whatever you call them, will slowly roll out.
Yeah, I mean the goal, of course, like the more we can rely on the machines to do the work, like the better. These algorithms are trying to figure out what is a site. So if you have, let's say, Microsoft.com, like you want to figure out if Microsoft.com, everything under the domain is one site, or if like Office.Microsoft.com or Xbox.Microsoft.com are different sites.
Right.
So this algorithm is always tuned, and we're trying to improve it so that it figures out these very rare cases where one single subdomain has been leased to a third party and clearly doesn't belong to the same site, whereas everything else does.
Okay. What's the worst spam thing somebody could do in terms of like being penalized? Is cloaking still like that number one thing you should never ever do, or is something worse than that?
Cloaking is definitely like at the very bottom of the barrel, like because if you cloak, we cannot trust anything on your site. So like in general, the harshest penalties happen when there is a good reason why we cannot trust anything on the site. So that would be cloaking because you return different content to the crawler. So how do we know that what our users are seeing?
Right.
Like we have ways to detect this kind of things, but we cannot trust you at all. Like this is like very egregious. When it comes like to hacked sites, malware distributors, that's also something we take not lightly at all. In hacked sites, it's very unfortunate for the owner of the site, but it also breaks all the trust because if a site has been hacked, essentially you lost all control over it. So someone could distribute malware, could run a phishing website, a link farm, sell like drugs, like they really anything could happen
back
at
in the
this
day,
point.
it was like the thing of showing a Disney cartoon, but really showing pornography, and the kid lands on it, and it's like kid grows up really quick. So, but spam has really come a long way. I mean, there was a lot of that, but now it's like it's people like hacking into people's websites, injecting links, injecting content. It's really, really bad. And I assume you're glad to be out of that space. Working on core ranking now, it probably wears you down. Like seeing all this bad stuff over time. I remember Matt Cutts in the old days, his wife had to like bake cookies. I don't know if you heard the story. Bake cookies in order to get other people to find, I guess, pornography in image search because that was his like task. To make. I think he made Safe Search for Google, or the first version or something like that. So he had to get a bunch of Googlers to search for like pornography or stuff like that, and the only way to do that was give them cookies because nobody really wanted to search actively at their job for it. But over the years, like seeing all this negative stuff on the internet, has it like weighed you down at all, or?
It's cyclical. There is the bad aspect, which is like, of course, every day you see like sometimes the worst of the internet, like really the worst you can imagine. And some days you catch a big spammer doing stuff, and then they start sending a lot of reconciliation requests. There is one who started to harass me on Twitter, and I actually once he at you also, like to kind of like put pressure on me, like saying, "Oh, Barry, did you see this big indexing problem?"
I don't like people do that.
And I'm like, yeah, this indexing problem is like we removed all your scammy websites from Bing. That is the indexing problem that
you
you
couldn't
described.
respond to him.
No, I cannot say. In general, I just mute. Like that's this kind of things. When it happens, definitely like you get a lot of satisfaction from knowing that you kept users safe. And like especially things like scams, tech support scams, these kind of things. You know that if you don't fight them, some of our users may end up calling that phone number and lose, I don't know, $200, $300, like from a scammer. So anytime we fight that and we see that it's very successful, that brings a lot of satisfaction. And that's definitely what I think is keeping everyone going in the spam team.
What about the opposite? Like, are there are there false positives where like sites get hit when they really shouldn't have been? Like you do an update, which I don't write about many Bing updates because you don't really see them so much. Maybe it's because traffic, people don't really track it as much, just because of the whole Google versus Bing thing.
Yep.
Do you see false positives? And if so, do you like, oh no, I ruined this guy's business, he shut down his business because of, well, I guess they wouldn't be shut down because of you necessarily, but does it make you feel bad about it? How do you react to like false positives?
Yeah, I mean, false positives are bound to happen. And anytime you use machine learning to do anything, like you know it cannot be perfect.
Right.
That's actually one of the characteristics of machine learning. You know you'll have a certain false positive rate. We tend to stay on the safe side in general. So like what is nice with machine learning is in general you can set like this threshold and decide, am I going to be safer, and like maybe I won't catch as much spam, but really like whatever I catch I'm pretty sure it is spam. Or you decide to catch more spam, but like then the net is a bit too big and you catch false positives. It does happen occasionally. Fortunately, I haven't seen or I haven't heard anyone really be extremely negatively impacted, like someone losing a business.
Yeah.
Definitely we feel bad anytime we catch someone unfairly, but for two reasons. One, like they have a legitimate business and we want to make sure that like they don't get catch unfairly and like they can still be on Bing and get customers. And also for our own users, it is a problem if they cannot find what they were looking for.
Right. I mean, I see all the time, especially with Google, when they do an update, it's like people are just so angry, like incredibly angry, where I have to shut down my business, I lost 50% of my traffic and stuff like that. But I guess they send out like the lion's share of the traffic, so I can see that not being as big of an issue for you, and it's more of a safer playground for you to try new things, I guess, that Google might not be able to try.
Yeah, and then like when you talk about ranking or algorithm updates, so it's also slightly different. So there is the spam aspect where we like someone either like someone took a manual action against you and they really didn't look carefully enough, and then you get penalized unfairly, and like that. It can feel really bad for everyone involved, like for whoever applied the action, for you as a business owner. Like if it's an algorithm update, it's generally slightly different because in general you get like a lot of just re-ranking. Like it's not just you've been penalized, it's we favored another website to be in front of you.
So maybe number 4 is now number 1, and number 1 is now number 6, and stuff like that.
And unfortunately, it is kind of a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
Like if people, let's say people click only on one link, which is not true. Like so sometimes you click on several links on the page, but like let's assume like people click only one link. Well, then it's you or your competitors, and so that we cannot guarantee that every single business is going to be viable. That's probably not our job either as search engines.
Right. It's funny, I think I saw Paul Haar was saying basically, as long as there's like a certain type of increase in some type of metric, even if it's tiny, they'll do it because it's so important.
Yep.
There might be some negative output to that, but the negative output is much less than the positive output to it. And that's what it's all about with this. It's just looking at these numbers and like tweaking it a little bit so the numbers are just a little bit better.
Yeah, when we talk about let's say 1% improvement in relevance, it's not like just everything went up by 1%. It probably 51% of the cases are slightly better and 49% of the cases are slightly worse. On average, like it makes like for a small improvement in the average relevance, but there are many cases where we're still not as good with a new algorithm, and there are just way more cases where we are better with a new algorithm. So it's always like balancing this, making sure like the results on average for all of our users in aggregate are better, just like pushing. So it's a game of inches in the end. That's how our VP like to call it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, for sure. I'm just curious, how big of an issue is spam in general for search engines? Is it like 10% of the index? that you might crawl have like are spammy pages, or is it more like 1%, or is it much bigger than?
There is no good answer to that, because if you don't fight it, probably it will end up being 99% of your index.
Okay.
Like the problem is that as soon as a spammer finds a way, then they are very good at just like pushing and like just like bricking the entire wall and flooding you with spam. So it's more a game of identifying where these holes are and patching them before they can be exploited in a massive way. Because if you don't do that, really, it would be 99% of the index.
All right, so for Bing, it's like 1%. I'm just joking. Okay. So now you're in the core ranking team. You're the PM of the core. You're PM of the lead core rank. What's your official title?
I'm PM lead for the core ranking team. So I manage the product managers for the ranking part of Bing.
What is it like? You walk into the office and what do you do? Obviously, spam fighting, you try to find bad actors, you're trying to find patterns, you do manual actions, and I get that, but what is your job now as PM?
So there are two aspects to my job. Because I have a team, like I take it very seriously to be a good mentor, a good coach for other PMs, and that's probably my number one priority. That's why I'm super excited about this job change, because I get to mentor younger PMs who are the next generation. Like, I don't want to sound like too old, but I've been doing this for like 10 plus years, and I want to make sure that more ideas, more diverse ideas and diverse backgrounds like get to influence how search is going to look like in the future. Then in terms of what PMs do, like the product managers, we look at it from a customer angle. So we get like a massive engineering team. You may ask like how many. I'm not going to answer that. That's a lot of people. And their job is really to make this machine learning model better. But making machine learning model is not making a product. It's just like a technical aspect. So what does it mean to make a good search engine? What does it mean to have a relevant result, quality results, contextual results? What is going to satisfy users? So for us, it's looking at a lot of queries and like just making this ideal SERP for like a broad range of queries and trying to distill that into guidelines, which are like the product specification for the ranking algorithm. So it is sometimes a bit overwhelming because you get an infinity of possible queries that you need to distill into a specification.
Right.
But it is what makes the job super interesting as well.
So when it comes to core rankings, you're not focused on obviously just spam. You're not looking at necessarily the UI, the user interface of the page. It's just about those 10 blue lists, whatever they might be. It's not always 10, right?
Yeah, that varies a little bit.
Okay. So it's basically why this page for this query should rank in this position versus that position, that position. You're constantly testing different things to make sure you can tweak out the most relevant, I guess, results in order for the query at hand. How much personalization is involved in that? Meaning, Google says they kind of backed off on personalization a lot. Are you guys doing a lot of personalization?
Really not much. Okay. So we don't personalize on individual user characteristics. We personalize based on location. So like obviously if you type Starbucks and you're in New York, you want the Starbucks in New York. So this is some kind of personalization that people don't necessarily think about it, personalization in that way, but obviously if we didn't know your location, we wouldn't be able to return the most relevant results in that case. There are also rare cases where if we know that you really like certain kind of websites, we may like adjust a little bit the rankings to customize them to you, but that's also something we're trying to back off because that's...
Is that based on what you click on in the search results, or?
Yeah, for you specifically. So like that doesn't impact anyone else, but like
the typical Jaguar thing. So if you click on a lot of cars versus the animal versus the football team.
Like it could be like something like that, or like if you prefer search engine land to another publication, and like then we'll like show it like higher for your personal results.
So you're backing off on that. Why? What's the rationale?
It's from a technical point of view, it's actually hard to maintain, and it doesn't bring that much value, honestly. So like whether we're going to swap the first and second result to show you search engine land at first, it's a lot of like technical work for not that much value because we still show your preferred site at 2, so you can still go there and like.
What about previous query? Like the media, you do anything with that? Because I know Google said they've done stuff around that, like you search for something and then you change your search like a second later.
We don't really do anything, I think, on that. That's something that we're always looking at the full user path. Like if you type a query, you reformulate it, that's for us a signal definitely that you didn't find what you wanted the first time.
Right.
So we use these different signals to evaluate user satisfaction.
That's
but in terms
that's in the back office. That's not done
yeah,
immediately.
right. Like from a ranking point of view, I don't think we do anything along these lines.
And your partnership with Facebook years and years ago about personalizing the search results through Facebook likes and stuff, that's gone. That's not in the algorithm anymore.
Yeah, as far as I know, it's not. At the time, I didn't work on that, so I don't know even when it was integrated at the time, if anything. Right now, I don't think there's anything anymore.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. The whole thing about submitting content to us versus, and even submitting the actual HTML rendered page to us versus us going out and crawling it. I understand it's more efficient for you guys for publishers to push content, but do you expect publishers to actually do that? I mean, what's the rationale behind that?
So, like the example that we like to give is LinkedIn. I think we can freely give it because LinkedIn is a Microsoft company, so like it's all within Microsoft. If someone is making an update to their profile, we basically want to pick it up as soon as possible. It's a win for LinkedIn because the first content shows on the SERP. It's a win for the users, especially you as the person who updated your own profile. Like you want to see it show up in search engines as early as possible. So having this signal, you imagine you have like hundreds of millions of profiles on LinkedIn. I don't know how many of them are updated every day, but even if it's 1%, like it would be like millions.
Right.
So having the ability to know which ones are updated and not having to go individually fetch all of these millions of pages that get updated, it saves resources for LinkedIn, for the websites that you crawl, or you're not crawling in that case, saves our own resources. So it's really like a win for everyone here.
So I asked, obviously, the competitor, and they're like, we only want to provide it for two things. I think it's like live streams and job postings, because that stuff updates a lot.
Yep.
But I think they're kind of afraid, I could be wrong, but afraid from a spam perspective to release an indexing API to everybody. And you guys are like, we're going all in, submit up to 10,000. If you need more, request more. I use it for my site. I use the API. It works well. I get crazy amounts of traffic from Bing. I'm just joking. I don't know. But do you think there's obviously you wouldn't release it unless you think you can't handle the spam, but you are able to handle the spam. So
I mean, definitely we see a lot of bad people trying to abuse the API. So that's absolutely something that we knew we had under control before we released it. And because spam is always evolving, something that we are monitoring constantly to make sure that bad sites are not submitting like directly 10,000 URLs, and like especially right now, like the content is only in preview, like pilot preview.
Right. Sure.
But as soon as you open the content to everyone, then you get exposed to things like a new kind of cloaking, where you submit content that is not the content.
Well, you have two things. One is the submitting the URLs in masses. That's open to everybody, I believe. Right.
Yeah.
And then there's the submitting the rendered HTML. I think that's a private beta, which I will be getting into. I'm sure I don't need to, but. That is that's working out well. You're happy with those results, the private?
So far so good, but anything you have in private pilot, like you select like good people, like you're not going to select spammers to be part of your pilot. So it works well for us from a functional point of view, but definitely it doesn't exercise our ability to detect spam like live, because LinkedIn, hopefully, is not going to spam us using the API.
Is LinkedIn the only person in that, only company in that?
It's the one I know. I don't work directly on the API, so I don't know who else would be there. I know that LinkedIn did the keynote with Fabrice at PubCon.
Yeah. Is the plan to go ahead and actually release to everybody this feature?
In the future, yeah.
Okay, cool. Looking forward to that. All right, cool. So you've been involved in the community, I think fairly recently. I mean, it's been like a few years maybe?
Yeah, like a year and a half, 2 years.
Year and a half. How are you enjoying the whole SEO community?
I enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot. It gives a very different point of view on what we're doing. So historically, Bing has been very focused on like building the best product for users. That's still number one priority. So even though we are involved in the community, like we still do that as a way to build a better product for end users. But really, you cannot do that without the backing of the people who make the websites, who build the content, who are making sure this content can be well understood by the machines, which is the SEO community. So I think there is a renewed interest from the product team and the marketing team at Bing to engage more with the SEO community, understand what are their needs, how you can help us get the best content, how we can help you put your best foot forward when you create content and build websites, so that it benefits our users at the end.
And the people you don't like, you just mute.
That's right.
There you go. And it's you, Christy, Fabrice. Who else is out there? That's kind of there's one more. There's another person.
So I did the talk with Maria at PopCon. So Maria is our product manager for Q&A. So in featured snippets for Bing. So definitely, like, you'll see more people coming to the community, because I work on a specific area. I worked on spam, I work now on ranking, but there are plenty of other areas of Bing that I think would benefit from more SEO input. Ravi did a talk on visual search at SMX London. Nagu was also in London and SMX West. He works on quality and the guidelines. So I think it's good for our product team to have more exposure with the SEO community, gather feedback. And
this is your responsibility to make sure that these people are
informally, I think it's more Christie's responsibility overall. But
between the two of you, you're pushing it. So
I'm trying to get more people to be involved. It's also a little bit selfish. Like, I've been traveling quite a bit, and I do need to back off a little bit.
Now you're a citizen, you're married, and you have this new big job, so you can't travel as much. I assume.
That's right. Like, probably once every 2 to 3 months would be like the good rhythm, I think.
Okay, cool. Well, I appreciate you doing this. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything you do for the community. How can people follow you online and harass you?
So if you want to harass me, it's at null on Twitter. If you just want to follow me, at CoperniX, CoperniX, or you can easily find me, I guess, searching me on Twitter.
And the Bing blog is really, you've been posting a lot more there. I mean, the team as well, so thank you for that. And thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So that's the man behind, I guess, Bing's core rankings, those 10 blue links. He's been in the industry for a pretty long time, a very long time actually, but he's only become more of a face in the industry in the past couple of years or so. The amount of transparency and things he's been sharing over the past couple of years has been immense, and it's just great to see Bing sharing so much and caring so much about the community. Hope you like the interview, and catch you later.